Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Grandma's Handbag. So glad you could join us. It's a Monday night here. Got the whiskey. Grandma's little helper is the Springbank 15-year-old single malt. Lovely stuff. I'll tell you a bit more about that in a second. But first things first, it is a collection video, collection time vision. I don't know, number 3 or 4. It'll be in the title. And I just want to get a little next part of the 7 inches out through onto the camera. Now, I don't have a sexier title as Kraken Vinyl Graham's 7 Inches of Joy, but I did today find an 8-inch floppy, just as a by the by. Whoever remembers using these when they were 8 inches? It's insane, look at it. Huh? Anyway, enough of this crap. Collection Time Vision 7 inches part 2, and I've got just assorted, I guess, roughly 70s and 80s 7 inches and some esoterica. So, the helper, first things first, second things second. Springbank 15-year-old. Lovely, lovely stuff. It's like smelling a Christmas pudding. That spice and loads of fruit and nut, but then you get waves of peat and a lot of salinity, a lot of salt there. A little bit challenging, but really, really nice stuff. Fires you up nicely for a winter evening. Anyway, stack of 7 inches. Let's show you what there is. First bit of esoterica. Looks like an envelope, and it is an envelope. It's basically a recording on a flexi disc of a set of bells of the Canberra Carillon, or Carillon. I love it. It's actually got design, origins, and then you've got a flexi of the actual recording. I have played it. It's a lovely, lovely thing to listen to as well. A great snapshot. In fact, I was just down in Canberra. That's Australia's capital. You wouldn't know it really. You don't hear about it a lot. Just the other day. So I got to see it, but didn't get to hear it. Here's another thing I've never heard, but thanks to a record like this, you can hear it. The Glasgow Cars. So, Glasgow trams. And it's fantastic. There's 2 tracks on each side. Band 1 and Band 2, they actually go and record different tracks. And it's just, there's something really, really lovely about train spotters, I guess. There's such a romantic language that they use. Not that you hear it, you only really hear the trams on this, but on the back you hear this car on the long run from Auchensugal to Dalmill West is heard just beyond Celtic Park. Listen to those tramway gongs, conductor's bell and maximum traction trucks, all recorded on a very wet Glasgow day on the 9th of April 1961. So, Glasgow Cars, there you go. What a fantastic thing. This is why I love records, I really do. Another great one. The Superb Lyrebird, Australia's forest singer. There you go, a flipback EP. And this basically is recordings of a bird. The lyrebird is an Australian native bird. I don't know if you can see that there. I'm trying to think. It sort of looks vaguely pheasantish, but it's an incredible mimic. So it'll basically mimic other birds, other humans, other animals, and even items, man-made items. Interesting stuff. Alright, here's another interesting one. On the Pix label, I don't know if you can see that there, Australian folk songs. So, 4 Australian folk songs sung by Marian Henderson. and with an Australian jazz flautist, Don Burrows, on the jazz label Pix Records. A very interesting little collection of songs, yeah. Alright, when you collect records, most of you will know this, you know, and your family, they just sort of leave their collection with you. At least that's my story for having these next couple. And yet I can't throw them out. I just cannot throw them out. Danny. Love and Kisses. Danny Minogue. Kylie's in every way younger and less, I don't know, inferior. It's awful to say that, isn't it? But anyway, guaranteed I will not play this. I heard it enough when I was 10 or 11. Thank you though, sisters. And thank you for this. No thanks at all. Milli Vanilli. Girl, I'm gonna miss you. Not gonna miss this, but I can't get rid of it. Alright, a bunch of singles. Now, one of my general criteria of singles, if I pick them up, is they've got to be a classic song, a song you want to put on if you're going through a run of 7 inches at a party. And I reckon this one has got to fit the bill. Donna Summers, Hot Stuff. Indeed. I don't know about this one. I really don't know about this one. Joe Dolce, Shut Up Your Face. Yeah, why do I have that? I can't even answer that. Alright, I can understand why I've got this. And I definitely know my wife's a fan. On the Motown label, in the original wrapper too. Lionel Richie, All Night Long. You can't argue with it. It is a pop classic. This is an interesting one. I am not so sure why I've got this, but Gary Shearston, it's an Australian folk rock singer. I think he had a little bit of success overseas on the famous Charisma label. And here he's doing a cover of Cole Porter's I Get a Kick Out of You. That's from 1974. Alright. Another classic single. Mute Records, Depeche Mode, Just Can't Get Enough. And that's a song I just can't get enough of on 7-inch. Might have shown these on my Pink Floyd video, but I'll do them again. The Tide is Turning, Roger Waters. Pink Floyd, Money with And Any Colour You Like as a jukebox single on Starline and Capitol. They're On the Turning Away with Run Like Hell. That should be a CBS label, I think. There you go, the Sunburst CBS. And Another Brick in the Wall, One of My Turns, on the Custom label. That's pretty sure that is an Australian copy. Speaking of Australian copies, there are a couple here, and we've got the Hummingbirds with Everything You Said and Get On Down. The Hummingbirds are an Australian power pop proto-alternative band from the late 80s to the early 90s. I will be doing a video on these guys. I've been saying that for a year, but I really need to do one. So the Hummingbirds, Get On Down, Everything You Said. And the next one, the Hummingbirds, again with their classic, absolute classic pop single, Blush. Crackin' vinyl. Graham, I know I've seen this in one of your videos. This one actually has, as it says there, an 8-page booklet. Just see if I can get this open. The Hummingbirds, just, yeah, great power pop stuff, but also real fans of music. There's a lot of little hidden messages in their song, in their records. Oftentimes their 12 inches have messages in the grooves. Not on this one. That's on the Ruart label. But here's this 8-page booklet. So, critics' picks, There's some blurbs and things there by the band, and some early promo stuff. So this was their first single when signed to almost a major label. I guess they weren't technically. Now here, in the Australian power pop vein of the 80s, is another fantastic song. Oh god, this is a good song. Some Loves Know You Now. They'll turn up in that Hummingbirds video, but fantastic stuff. Worth Googling if you're a power pop fan. Pure power pop, great stuff. Alright, speaking of great stuff, Patti Smith, Because the Night, because it's a great song. Mars, Pump Up the Volume. Now I've seen someone show this recently, might have been James Buttery, really raving about the B-side. Of course this is only the 7-inch, and you probably want the 12-inch version. This is an Australian version, so it's got all the original samples intact. And it says D. Bowie there, so maybe this was David Bowie's copy, maybe? I really wish it was, but there's I don't even know why that's there. No idea. Anyway, D. Bowie, Mars. I don't know how this got there, but anyway. UB40, Red Red Wine. I know my wife is partial to UB40, so that's probably why that's there. Travelling Wilburys, Handle with Care. Not going to leave that lying around. Shriekback, Gunning for the Buddha, and Exquisite. This is an Australian tour date version, and it's really, really interesting to look at some of those tour dates. They're playing places now that, not that they don't exist, but they were getting deep into suburban venues that just would not have bands these days at all. So it's really, really fascinating to see what an 80s, a healthy live gig and concert scene was. It's more or less dead now in Australia. And speaking of magazines, Feed the Enemy. Again, this is an Australian tour version, September 1980. Very cool little piece to have. On the beautiful Mushroom 80s label, I Got You, Split Ends. Again, classic single. And I don't know if that applies to this song. I don't know how I got this. Don't even know what the... alright, I think... There we go. Montevideo and the Cassettes. With Shoop Shoop, Diddy Wop, Cumma Wang Dang. The less said, the better. Might need to wash my hand after that. Peter Gunn, The Art of Noise, featuring Duane Eddy. I haven't spun that in years, but that would have been my first exposure to anything Duane Eddy related in the 80s. Sugar Hill, Grandmaster Flash's The Message, just on the 7-inch from 1982 with an instrumental version on the back. Again, classic singles. Alright, this would have been my first exposure to anything Elvis Costello. I remember this coming out in the late 80s and knowing that Paul McCartney had something to do with it, and he certainly has a co-write on there. Veronica with Elvis Costello. Still love that song. Something Eleanor Rigby-ish about it. Chic, Good Times. Say no more. Now this is an odd one. I don't know quite where this fits in. Pete Shelley with Homo Sapien and Keats song on the Island label. The old Daytime, Nighttime. I did used to love this song as a kid. Paul Young and Love of the Common People. So I don't know if that fits into a cod reggae song there, but yeah, always very evocative song for me as a kid. Now this is a classic Australian power pop single, Sunny Boys, Alone With You, and on the back, Stop and Think and To The Bone. So, 1981 original single, fantastic stuff. Talk Talk with Talk Talk. Early steps for them, but they obviously went on to better things. Another one that reminds me of being a very young kid, Pass the Dutchie by Musical Youth. Now this is a great song. I used to love this as a kid. The Church with Metropolis. I think a really underrated song of the Churches as well. Off their Gold Afternoon Fix album, which they mainly dismissed, or at least Steve Kilbey did. But Metropolis is just a magical single. I mean, it's nearly 5 minutes long or so, but still a great single. To me, almost the ultimate 1980s song. Roxy Music and More Than This. What a wonderful song. Just so rich and yet so empty. Love it. A Australian New Zealand classic, Slippin' Away by Max Merritt and the Meteors. This says 1975. I always thought this was released around about 1970, but anyway, on the Arista label. Alright, we've got Polnareff, Michelle Polnareff, I Love You Because. I might have shown this before. I picked this up in Japan a year or two ago. There's that fold over on the Epic label. And actually it turned out not to be the song that I wanted, but still, I mean, who's going to resist a cover like that? I'm not the one. Alright, these last bunches are actual 7 inches, almost all of them anyway, that I bought back in the 1980s as a kid. So you had Cass singles, I'll get to those another day, or 7 inches, and these are ones that I picked out as a up to 10-year-old kid, I guess, maybe 11 at the latest. Brian Ferry, Let's Stick Together. So this got a reissue in the late 80s anyway. Yeah. Backed with Roxy Music's Trash on the back, on the B-side. I don't know if you can see that. Sorry, everyone. In Excess with New Sensation and Guns in the Sky. Definitely was an In Excess fan as a kid. It was kind of hard not to be in Australia. They were the little band that could, the one that went big, you know. This one I remember getting from my next door neighbours. And I didn't actually know a lot about them at the time, Tears for Fears, but always enjoyed Sowing the Seeds of Love. The song, just, sorry. Mercury label, yeah. And this is a hoarder's life. If you don't throw things out. This one I only picked up recently, The Venetians with Bitter Tears. But I used to love it as a kid. And if you want a trivia question or a trivia answer, I think it's this gentleman here became the drummer, or is now the drummer for the Church, and has been for 20 years, I suppose. So, The Angels with Finger on the Trigger. It's a bit of a naughty cover, but the Angels were hard to avoid in the 80s in Australia. Now, wasn't there that piece of Lonesome Longing? And look at that hair. Henry Lee Summer, I Wish I Had a Girl. I wished for a long time. Must have been something about that hair. Rod Stewart, Lost in You. Still love that song. I mean, I don't know about the rest of his career, probably anything after 75, but that song. Alright, The Saints with The Music Goes Round My Head. 1988. This was off a Young Einstein soundtrack, I think, but Into the Saints at age 9. I don't know. These all point to becoming a music collector, I'm thinking. I mean, as does this. Look, Bruce Springsteen, Tougher Than the Rest. Yeah. Loved that song as a kid. Always felt older than my years. I don't know about how many 9-year-old kids loving that, or Cheap Trick, The Flame. Yeah, that was a big one for me as a kid on the Epic label. And lastly, Because I Love You by Masters Apprentices. And this is interesting. This originally came out in 1970 and it got a reissue in 1988. Yeah, great song. Might even outro with some of this if I can, and see what you think of it. It's an Australian sort of classic, probably recorded in the UK. And I'm just seeing if it looks like they re-recorded it in the late 80s. Anyway, that's enough. Thank you so much for joining in for this. I know the 7 inches don't get an awful lot of love, but you know, they've got their own little story to tell, and I'm fond of them, even if you don't get to play them as often as you want to. But yeah, anyway, we've been listening to Pentangle with Solomon Seal. Always good to have some English folk rock for a nice wintry night. Bert Jansch, John Renbourn, and Danny Thompson on bass. How can you go wrong with any of that? Jackie McShee's vocals as well. So, cheers everyone. I'll talk to you all again soon. Good night.